What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another mock draft episode. Appreciate everybody who's been tuning in to all of these mock drafts that I've been dropping. Appreciate everybody who's been checking out these shorts as well with the NFL draft sleepers, top 5 players to look out for, top 5 player positions. Just all the support has been amazing. I really appreciate everybody. We are on our road to 200 subscribers now. I believe we are at just a little bit over 170. So if you are new, be sure to smash that subscribe button for me. Again, if you're just returning for another mock draft episode, always appreciated. Be sure to smash that like button. And I appreciate all the comments I've been getting and all the feedback that we've been getting from each and every mock draft episode. Again, it is always taken into account for. So make sure you guys keep commenting on these mock drafts. Keep leaving likes. Appreciate all the support. Be sure to follow me as well on Instagram, CFB_ALECELIJAH, CFB Alec Elijah. That's also on X as well and TikTok. So be sure to follow. Now let's get into this mock draft where we have the Jags at the number 1 pick still. And I think this is a no-brainer. I know last time we took a tackle. We took Will Campbell with our number 1 draft pick. He was the first time I've changed Travis Hunter from not being the number 1 draft pick. But we're going to go back to that because there's no way you see a talent like Travis Hunter and not select him on your team. I think it's actually nuts that he doesn't go number 1. Just the talent level that he possesses, being able to play both sides of the football and having the motor that he does, it's completely insane. And I think you need to take into account for just anything that he can do on the football field. Virtually, you can line him up anywhere on offense or defense. Granted, not the defensive line or offensive line. But he'll make a play for you. And at the end of the day, the Jaguars need playmakers right now. Outside of BTJ, it's not really a whole lot going on for them offensively. Travis Etienne, yeah, he's been all right. Took a little bit of a backpedal this season now. Trevor Lawrence, on the other hand, he kind of needs another weapon to utilize. Offensive line, yes, you need a tackle, you need guards. You need guys that can go ahead and beef up the trenches and help Trevor Lawrence. But there's no way you look at a prospect like Travis Hunter and just go, nah, we're good. And I've said that multiple times already. Travis Hunter is extremely talented, and he can be the CB1 for the Jacksonville Jaguars right now. Probably wide receiver 2 as well. Top 5 DB, top 5 wide receiver. There's no way he doesn't go. I mean, maybe he does not go number 1, but I personally think he's going to be the number 1 pick regardless of whoever is taking the number 1 selection. Now, for the Tennessee Titans, quarterback is a big need, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. I still think they go ahead and let Will Levis ride out his rookie contract. If they do grab a quarterback, I do think it's going to be in free agency. I don't think they're going to be bidders in the quarterback race in this draft. I think they might wait another year, maybe potentially be in the running for Arch Manning. We'll have to see what Tennessee does. I just don't think quarterback is going to be where they are headed. So with that being said, obviously tackle and wide receiver are a big need. And I think wide receiver is kind of where you have to take this. Tyrell McMillan is going to be the first wide receiver taken off the board. Granted, again, Travis Hunter to me is an athlete. He's not just a cornerback. He's not just a wide receiver. He is an athlete. If we're looking at, terms of just full wide receiver, Tyrell McMillan is wide receiver 1. 6'5". He has all the goods to produce at the next level. Big body wide receiver. Obviously, perfect for the X. And a weapon that, the Titans really need. Again, you're going to ride out that contract with Will Levis. Just go ahead, ride it out. Get into the bidding for next year. If not, go after a free agent quarterback. A lot of people aren't high on Daniel Jones. He might just need a change of scenery. Sam Darnold could be another guy that's on, could be potentially seeing himself in a Titans uniform. There's going to be a little bit of friction going on in the free agency market for quarterbacks. I think Titans are going to be in the running for a quarterback in free agency. As for the Cleveland Browns, they're clearly going to be in the running for a quarterback, no doubt about it. Now, it's really about where or what quarterback you want to go. I shouldn't say where, but what quarterback you want to roll with. Do you want to go with Cam Ward or do you want to go with Jaylen Milroe? I say that because, again, Deion Sanders has already publicly said he's going to step in if he feels a franchise is not going to be suitable for Shedeur Sanders. Cleveland's not a suitable franchise for Shedeur Sanders, if we're being completely honest, which is why I do think Cam Ward is probably going to be the first quarterback taken in this year's NFL draft. Has all the talent to do so. Again, I'm not as high on Jaylen Milroe as others. I do think he has possibility to go in the first round. Again, I do have the over-under at about 3 quarterbacks in this first round. But I don't think he's the first quarterback taken off the board. I think just being a little bit undersized is going to play a little bit of a part. A lot of people might not think so, but we've seen what happened with Bryce Young. It's played a little bit of a pivotal role. Not saying that he hasn't done a little bit better recently, because Bryce Young's taken it. Because Bryce Young's really turned it around. I mean, I don't even think Carolina is going to be in the running for a quarterback anymore because of how well Bryce Young's really doing. But with that being said, again, I do have Cam Ward being the first quarterback taken off the draft. And no-brainer on the Raiders. I think this is probably just going to be what naturally happens going forward when it comes to this Raiders pick. It's going to be Shedeur Sanders going to the Raiders. They're in need of a quarterback. Shedeur Sanders clearly has been, in talks with the Raiders already. If not, Deion's been in talks with the Raiders already. But with that being said, I do think it's a no-brainer for the Raiders to select Shedeur Sanders at the 4 pick. Again, I had them taking Ashton Jeanty a couple times, but that was when they were picking at about 11 or 13. In this top 4 pick, you kind of don't want to waste it. You already have pieces there. I've said it before. At least not on the channel, but I do think T. Higgins is a potential suitor for the Raiders as well. So if you get T. Higgins in free agency, Shedeur Sanders in the draft, you already have guys like Jacoby Myers there. Again, running game, it'll take care of itself in the later rounds. Shedeur Sanders is the no-brainer pick at number 4. And going for the Giants, I think this is probably where we see Jaylen Milroe being selected. I think Daniel Jones' experiment is just completely done. We're not going to see any more of it. And Jaylen Milroe, again, I don't think that he has a game that's translatable to the NFL. That's just me personally. But there's going to be, a coordinator that figures it out with Jaylen Milroe at the end of the day. I think he has a high IQ, and a lot of people are asking me, well, how does he have a high IQ if he can't pass the ball on all 3 levels? He doesn't really turn the ball over a whole lot, if you think about that. That takes IQ. He makes smart decisions when he does have to throw the football. And when he has to tuck and run, he doesn't do it, dumb. He literally tucks the ball, runs, gets his yardage. He'll slide, he'll run out of bounds. He's not looking to take big hits like some of these other quarterbacks that are going to cause fumbles. So with that being said, I think Jaylen Milroe is the 3rd quarterback taken off the board. We might see some more quarterbacks going in the mock draft, but right now, again, I did have the over-under, at least for the 2025 draft class, at about 3 for the first round picks. And we get into my New England Patriots. More than likely, probably going to be a tackle taken. I like what I'm seeing a lot with Pop Douglas. I like what I'm seeing with Jalen Polk. Drake May has been doing really well with getting them the ball. So at this point, I'm on the train. Like, let's get Drake May all the protection that he needs, and let's not look back. So if Will Campbell is going to be that option, then let's go ahead and take Will Campbell. Huge unit guy. I think he's 6'5", 6'6", 323 pounds. Has versatility to play guard and tackle. No-brainer pick for my Patriots here. We get into the New York Jets, and I'm going to be honest. I think the Aaron Rodgers debacle is over. I think Devontae Adams probably leaves this season, or at the end of this season, and there's a chance we see a quarterback taken to the Jets. Who? We really don't know yet. There's a couple guys that I would take in the first round, although they're not big first-round targets. But if you're going to go ahead and reach, there's a couple guys that you can definitely maybe take a peek at. 2 of them being Jackson Dart and Dillon Gabriel. Excellent passers. And Dillon Gabriel is going to come from Oregon. And I was really, really low on Bo Nix last draft season. But it seems like Lanning knows what he's doing with quarterbacks over there. So we have to take into account for that. I think Dillon Gabriel is going to translate very well to the NFL. He's very developed, 6-year guy in college. A lot of people are kind of looking down on that. But when you look at quarterback development now in the NFL, I think you really have to appreciate guys that are taking, 4, 5 years in college. Even utilizing that redshirt option. I know some of these guys had the COVID year. Dillon Gabriel took that into account. So I think he's going to be fully developed at the NFL level, and I think he's a guy that you could comfortably take in the first round. If not, Jackson Dart's been an excellent passer this year. Going to be going under the Lane Kiffin tree for quarterbacks, and he's pretty high IQ as well. Again, another guy that's really developed in college football. He's played, I believe, 3 seasons as a full-time starter. Has seen some flashes, again, earlier in his collegiate career. But right now, I think those two would be the two quarterbacks that you're really going to target in the first round. I don't think Nussmeier has first round goods. I don't think Drew Allard has first round goods. Carson Beck, these past couple of games, we've been seeing where the flaws are going. Quinn Ewers is a little bit of an interesting prospect. I don't see Quinn Ewers as a first round target simply because of the injuries that he's had to deal with in college football throughout his career. So I think if you're going to go quarterback, it's probably going to be Jackson Dart, probably going to be Dillon Gabriel. Again, I don't know where the Jets go with Aaron Rodgers, but I think right now, just to have a little bit of fun, I'm going to take Dillon Gabriel in the first round going to the Jets because I do think the Aaron Rodgers experiment is over, in my personal opinion. Again, I don't know what the Jets are going to do with that, but I think it's time to cut the umbilical cord with Aaron Rodgers. And time's just getting wasted. You have too many good players, good young players to utilize to just be running around with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams trying to get, another ring with. Now we get into the Panthers, and again, I don't see the Panthers taking a quarterback anymore. I think Bryce Young is getting extremely comfortable in his role, and I think they're having a lot more fun now with the coaching changes. And I do think this is where we start looking at wide receivers now. Let's look for a target for Bryce Young to utilize outside of Leggett. I think Leggett is going to be a great outside wide receiver, but let's look for a slot weapon. It's going to be between Luther Burden, Emeka Egbuka, and Isaiah Bond. Isaiah Bond going to be the fastest wide receiver in this draft class, more than likely. Emeka Egbuka, probably the most polished wide receiver in terms of slots. Again, these are just 3 slot receivers that I'm going to be targeting. And Luther Burden, obviously, having the most hype coming into this collegiate football season. He was touted as, potentially the wide receiver 1 outside of McMillan. Obviously lackluster to statistically season. Still though, he's shown some great flashes of the player that he was last season. And I'm going to be honest, it's really between, right now for me, Luther Burden and Emeka Egbuka. Again, Isaiah Bond's going to be the fastest wide receiver, but I think in terms of weapons that you want to grab and immediately input in your offense, Emeka Egbuka is that guy. Polished routes, development in college. He showed flashes in 2022 during his sophomore year, junior year, lackluster quarterback play this season. They've had to spread the ball out just a little bit more, a little bit of a different offensive look. But again, Emeka Egbuka still has all the goods to be a top NFL talent at the next level. And this is another no-brainer pick for me when we get into the Dallas Cowboys. Like the run game, it's literally atrocious at this point. You need to go ahead and grab yourselves a cowbell back. It's going to be 2 options, Ashton Jeanty or Caleb Johnson out of Iowa. And again, Ashton Jeanty has all the goods to be going top 10 in this NFL draft. He's RB1 for me, RB1 for a lot of scouts out there. So yeah, no-brainer pick for the Cowboys. And we get into the Saints. This is another team that's probably going to be looking at quarterbacks just because they're either going to have to be fishing in free agency or they're going to have to roll with, Spencer Rattler or Jake Haener. I don't think Derek Carr is the answer. And again, we get into this awkward position where Jackson Dart's really the only quarterback that I would potentially select at this point. And even then, I don't think that it's really worth selecting. I think at this point, you're kind of just going to want to beef up your defensive line. Again, Cam Jordan's not getting any younger. Mason Graham's probably going to be the best defensive lineman in this draft. Already touted as the #1 defensive lineman in this class by PFF. Once he gets graded and everything in terms of the pro combine and stuff like that, I think he's going to do really well. You can cut on the tape and already see that he's an offensive disruptor. So teams won't have to worry about, is he going to produce or translate at the next level? He will most certainly do just fine. Now, getting into the Bengals, again, I keep seeing this need for wide receiver, but I do think that they have guys that they can develop into wide receiver 2s and 3s already there. I don't think a wide receiver is going to be a big need. Again, you still have to pay Jamar Chase at the end of the season. And the season that he's having, dude, you're going to have to back up the Brinks truck to his house. So I think at this point, looking for trench warriors is going to help you. Trey Hendrickson, I'm not sure if he's still leading the league in sacks. Might still be top 3 in sacks though right now. I think it's good to get him a running mate. And if you can't get a defensive lineman, get somebody that gives you a versatility to be lined up inside and out on the edge. Abdul Carter gives you that versatility. He's one of the top edge rushers in this year's draft. And he has 8 sacks on the season already, 24 hurries, and 4 hits. Not to mention, he does pretty well in coverage as well. So definitely a guy that people are going to want to be looking at is Abdul Carter. Again, I've been high on Jack Sawyer out of Ohio. Not to say that he's not going to go in the first round, but Abdul Carter right now is looking like a safety net pick for the Bengals, who are in need for some defensive guys to help them in the trenches. Now, as for Miami, I think this is also another no-brainer, no pun intended. Get yourself some protection for Tua. Get Tua some help, because obviously all those quarterback hits are going to take a toll on him one way or another. So Kelvin Banks, again, probably a top tackle in this draft. Again, Will Campbell has a lot of versatility to go into the guard position. So a lot of people are touting Kelvin Banks as the number one tackle option in terms of pure tackles going into the NFL. So no-brainer pick for the Dolphins. Get to us some protection. We get into the Bucs, and this is potentially where we see the first cornerback taken off the board. Will Johnson, no-brainer CB1 in this draft. Again, Travis Hunter is an athlete to me, guys. No-brainer, though. Will Johnson is CB1, and whatever team selects Will Johnson, you automatically have an island on your defense. He has all the goods to be a top corner at the next level. Getting into the Bears, and this is going to be a time where we just, again, last draft, I even talked about it after I made the pick. I do think offensive line is where we're going to have to be headed for the Bears when it comes to the first round. More than likely, you're going to have to find someone that gets you some versatility. Josh Simmons doesn't give you that versatility. Milam doesn't give you that versatility. Williams doesn't give you that versatility. Ursery will give you that versatility. Outside of that, oh man, I don't like to see my guy Emory Jones sliding down. But outside of that, not a whole lot of guys that are going to give you tackle and guard play. Looking at some of the guards available, I mean, Booker's sliding down. Tate Ratledge is actually going up, but obviously the guard play isn't as good as you want it to be compared to the tackle play. So Oronte Ursery is probably a no-brainer pick for the Bears. And we get into the Colts, and this is probably where we see our first safety or linebacker taken off the board. I don't think Jalen Walker is going to be our first linebacker taken off the board, though. I'm going to be completely honest. Jahad Campbell is playing extremely well this season, and he has been virtually all over the field for Alabama. And I think after the Combine and after the Pro Day, Jahad Campbell is going to be linebacker one. Again, gonna debate on how or if Perkins tests, because that injury is obviously making him slide down draft boards, which I hate to see because he's a talented player. But if he doesn't test, there's a chance that he does find himself sliding into the second. Jahad Campbell, on the other hand, film, it's there. It looks very good. Again, eye test tells you he has all the goods to translate very well into the NFL level. And I think he's going to be the first linebacker taken in this year's NFL draft. He's my LB1 right now that Harold Perkins is out. Again, Harold Perkins was here. He'd probably be the only linebacker I put over Jahad Campbell in this draft class. And same story for the Seahawks. It's not going to change. We're still going to be looking for guys that can play the right side of the line. Again, 2022, Simmons played on the right side of the line. We need someone that can play guard and tackle on the right side for the Seahawks, because that right side of the line has just been atrocious. Again, that's something that I've been preaching for really just every single episode when I talk about the Seahawks, is just how bad that offensive line has been on the right side. And Cameron Williams, for some reason, slid down, but he was actually a highly ranked tackle last mock draft. So it's going to be between Josh Simmons and Cameron Williams here. And I'm going to take Cameron Williams still. I'm not too sure why he's sliding down, because if you watch the tape, outside of Kelvin Banks, Cameron Williams is the second best offensive lineman on that Texas offensive line. So definitely a good reason that So definitely a good chance that we see Cameron Williams be the second tackle taken from Texas in the first round. And we get into the LA Rams, and I think this is where we start seeing some defensive guys start going off the board. We're going to have to see another cornerback go to the LA Rams, because it's been evident that the secondary there just isn't as good as it used to be. Benjamin Morrison dealing with some injuries. Siobhan Ravel obviously having the season-ending injury. Those two are still going to be my next targets at cornerback. Troy Amos is playing really good football. I'm super high on, where did he go? Jabbar Muhammad, I'm not too sure. Oh, going all the way down now. Again, I'm high on Tony Grimes as well. 6'2" corner. Gives you that prototypical size. These are guys that I think are going to test really well. Outside of Siobhan Ravel and Benjamin Morrison, of course. Savon Ravel, I really don't know if he tests because of the injury that he's dealing with. Benjamin Morrison more than likely going to nurse that hip and be good to go by the Combine. So it's really between those two. And I think I'm still going to go ahead and roll with Benjamin Morrison as my CB2 in this year's draft. Because if you cut on the tape, when Notre Dame's playing its best defense, it's simply because Benjamin Morrison is on an island, more than likely, with the other opposing team's wide receiver one. And he doesn't have a problem being on an island. He's a willing tackler, and he's excellent in man and zone coverage. So that's why I have him as my CB2. Niners, probably not going to be in the running for a cornerback. Again, they just paid Diamadou Lenore. Safety could definitely be in play here, though. Malachi Stark still being available. Again, I'm high on Billy Bowman out of Oklahoma. Kamari Ramsey's playing really good football. Not as high on Castro as some, but I think this is where we see Malachi Starks go. Again, I think it's going to be time to find a replacement for Talanoa Hufanga. And it's not a bad thing. It's just Hufunga's been dealing with a lot of injuries, and the defense is starting to take this decline compared to where it used to be these past 3 to 4 years that we've known it to be a defensive juggernaut. Whereas this season, it's like, it's sweet. I'm going to be completely honest. So getting somebody in there that can help you at the back end of your secondary is going to be extremely, extremely crucial. And I think Malachi Starks is going to be a great fit in that secondary. A hard-hitting safety, and he's going to do really well if the Niners can land a pick like Malachi Starks. Getting into the Broncos, again, I still think this is where we look at wide receivers. I think they have some great talent there, but in terms of slot wide receivers, there's just not a lot of guys there that are getting it done. Bo Nix is really making the most of what is available, and he's having a terrific season. Again, I wasn't a big Bo Nix believer going into last year's draft, but after watching what he's doing in the NFL, I have to admit I was wrong about him, and I was hating, to be completely honest. With that being said, though, I think a speed demon in Denver can really do them some justice. I think a guy like Isaiah Bond can be a big playmaker at the NFL level. And I think having a quarterback like Bo Nix who likes to air the ball out, it's going to do wonders for Isaiah Bond. You can get creative with Bond. You can use him in the slot, in the out. You can even let him run the ball if you want to. He's got a lot of versatility, and he's going to be a big weapon for whatever NFL team selects him. At this time, we have the Broncos taking him. On the clock, we have the Dirty Birds. And again, same thing. We're going to go with a edge rusher again. I wish they would have just done this in the first round last season. It would have saved them a lot of time and scrutiny. But nonetheless, we got to go ahead and just take Nick Scorin at edge. Probably going to be one of the top edge rushers in this year's draft. A lot of people had him touted as edge one. Abdul Carter now taking that reign. Again, I have Jack Sawyer from Ohio being my edge one. But Nick Scorin, well worth a first round pick when you cut on the tape and see why. And this is where we potentially see another running back go to the Houston Texans. Mixon's not going to get any younger, although he's balling out. Dameon Pierce experiment is over. And I'm glad to see Caleb Johnson's finally getting some love by rising up these draft boards, because he's a cowbell back that I think is going to translate very well at the NFL level. Cut on his Iowa tape, you will definitely know exactly what I am talking about. Getting into the Arizona Cardinals, and again, this is where we could potentially see some more defensive guys going off the board. Linebacker being a huge need for the Arizona Cardinals, and I didn't have Jalen Walker being my LB1. Again, I don't have him being my LB2. I do see Harold Perkins being my LB2. Again, we're going to have to see what happens when he nurses the injury and if he ends up testing at the combine or not. But for now, Jalen Walker is a safety net LB2 for the Cardinals at least. He's played on some talented Georgia defenses, and he's having a terrific season. So there's a chance that he sees himself sneaking into the first round this upcoming draft. We get into the Washington Commanders. Cornerback, I think, is still a need. I know I said that they took care of the biggest problem, but outside of Lattimore, the secondary really still stinks. So I think this is where we could see Savon Ravel potentially go. Again, I don't know what's going to happen with his injury or if he's going to test at the combine or not. Again, this is a guy who ran a 4.4 at camp for Eastern Carolina. So there's a chance that he still sees himself going in the first round if he can go ahead and nurse that injury, come back and test at the combine. I still have Savon Ravel being the next cornerback taken off the board after Benjamin Morrison. Still my CB3, and it's not going to change. I do think he can be an excellent piece next to Marshawn Lattimore. As for the Baltimore Ravens, this is kind of where you got to ask yourself, do you want to build in the trenches or do you want to help your secondary out? I think both for the Ravens do need a little bit of help. Offensive line, though, obviously going to be the biggest focal point. Center's taken care of because you got Linderbaum there. But making sure that Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry are comfortable is probably going to be your biggest focal point going into next season if you don't win a Super Bowl. As of right now, I think offensive line is kind of just the safety net pick for the Ravens. Cornerbacks, we can kind of take a look at and see what they can get in free agency. But I think offensive line-wise, tackle's kind of going to be the safety net option for the Ravens. And we get into the Chargers, and I think tight end's a no-brainer here. I had been taking a tight end last draft, and people kind of told me I was crazy because they signed so many tight ends. I still think tight end is the biggest need here, and I hate that Harold Fannin Jr. is not getting enough love because he's number 2 in the nation in receiving yards. He leads tight ends in 20-plus categories offensively, number 1 in blocking, has a lot of speed, has an excellent route tree. I think he's the first tight end taken off the board in this year's draft class. Once they cut on the tape, once they cut the pro day, and once he goes ahead and tests at the combine, I think Harold Fannin Jr. is going to show all scouts and coaches why he is tight end 1 in this year's draft class. As for the Packers, pretty much another no-brainer. Just go ahead and get a tackle. Get yourself some help on the offensive line. Get Jordan Love some protection because running game's taken care of with Jacobs. You have plenty of offensive weapons, but how is Jordan Love going to get these weapons the ball without an offensive line protecting him? He's taken a lot of sacks. He's had a couple of lingering injuries this season, and I think offensive line is going to be the biggest focal point for the Packers heading into this year's NFL draft. As for the Steelers, this is pretty much going to be a gift, honestly, for them. I've had them penciled down for a slot wide receiver for the past 3 mock drafts now. Not going to change either. Luther Burden going over to the Steelers, staying in the black and gold, to be completely honest with you, and not too really far away, still in the East Coast over there, but he's going to do really well, translate really well at the next level. Again, top slot wide receiver in this year's draft class. Again, he was touted as potentially a wide receiver 1 early in the season, but unfortunately, due to some of the just the subpar statistics that he's had, and again, it's not his fault that he's not getting the ball as much as last season. I feel like quarterback play definitely has to do a lot with it, but you can cut on tape and still see he has high quality reps. He's an excellent slot wide receiver, and he's going to be a big weapon in the NFL for sure. And getting into Minnesota, I think this is where we see another running back go off the board. And it's going to be my guy from UNC, Omarion Hampton, who's been a talented back. He has all the goods to be a cowbell back as well if you cut on his tape. And he's going to do really well. I think he's well worth a first-round pick. While it's not going to be an early first-round pick, I do think he has all the goods to be a top running back coming out of this year's draft class. Getting into the Eagles, and really there's a lot of good edge rushers left on the board. So this is kind of going to be a gift for Philadelphia. Again, you can get a guy like James Pierce who offers you versatility. LT Overton also is the inside-outside versatility. Michael Williams, who's been playing on tremendous defenses the past 2 to 3 seasons. But I think right now I'm going to take James Pierce. I like the versatility that he offers inside and out. I think he's a terrific prospect, and he's really been the heart and soul of Tennessee's defense this season. Last 3 picks, this is typically where we get into the teams where it's getting a little bit hard on where we should go. But I think the Bills need to be looking at a wide receiver. I don't know how long they have Amari Cooper. I definitely got to take a look at that. But I think a ex-wide receiver could do them justice. Again, they have guys like Shakir who are good for the slot, but you need someone who can really just be the perfect outside wide receiver for you. And I think no-brainer, it's Kyron Lacy from LSU. LSU is just wide receiver you. They produce another talented wide receiver year after year, and I don't think this year is going to be any different with Kyron Lacy. I do think he's another top talented wide receiver out of LSU. He has all the goods, tremendous route tree, a lot of speed, a lot of charisma as well, and I feel like he's going to do really well with a quarterback like Josh Allen who can air the ball out and utilize him as a vertical threat. Now, as for the Chiefs, I do think they're still going to be looking for a predecessor for Travis Kelce. Colson Loveland and Tyler Warren are pretty much going to be your 2 options here. Colson Loveland probably going to be a no-brainer right now. He's a lot of people's tight end 1s. Again, I have Harold Fannin Jr. as my tight end 1 just because of the receiving threat that he is. But Colson Loveland gives you the versatility of an excellent blocker and an excellent pass catcher as well, which is why I do think he can find himself in the first round. And we get into the Lions, and this is pretty much just a no-brainer again. Pretty much that's been the theme of today's draft. You can go after a tackle here, or you can go after an edge. Beef up the trenches pretty much is where the no-brainer's coming from, and I think getting a running mate for Hutchinson, like Michael Williams or like LT Overton, you're setting yourself up for success. Princely Unamelean, who's been playing really well football, he's probably going to see himself get a boost towards the end of the season after everybody cuts on the tape. So I think right now, just because of where we're at in terms of tackles, I think edge is probably going to be your best bet, at least for in terms of safety net picks. So get yourself a running mate for Hutchinson. Michael Williams and Hutchinson on opposite sides of the line, probably going to be super nasty for years to come if you can get an edge rusher like Michael. But here we are for this mock draft. Let me go ahead and slide this over for you guys. Here we are for this mock draft. Again, let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Let me know if anybody is too high or just too low in this mock draft. Again, we had another quarterback go in this mock draft. I had usually 3 quarterbacks here, but we did see a 4th sneak on in, and we also seen 3 running backs go in this draft class as well. Again, talented draft class for sure. There's a lot of guys that are worth first-round selections. Not everybody can be first-round, though. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think. Be sure to smash that like button. Be sure to smash that subscribe button. I will see you guys next video. Peace.